Okay, this tutorial is based on a request I had on how to use brushes in Photoshop. And the answer to that is to use Adobe Camera Raw. For those not familiar with Camera Raw, this is the alternate to the development module as used in Lightroom. It looks identical. So the first question is how do I do that? Well, this screen here is my Photoshop file, and it's the file display in Photoshop. These are the recent pictures. So what I'm going to do, this one is a JPEG picture. If you open up a RAW file, it will open up directly into Camera Raw. But this doesn't answer my original question. So I'm going to open this up. I'm going to click on it, and there you have it. And the quick answer to how to say if you're in Photoshop and how to make it look the way you want it is to first of all hit Command J to duplicate the layer as shown. Now with that layer is very simple. You take Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and it opens up Adobe Camera Raw, as you can see here. And if you're not familiar with Camera Raw, if you're familiar with Lightroom, it's pretty much identical. Some things are in different places, like this column over here, where the masks are. But I'm going to start out with some basic adjustments, like I always like to do before you do the masks. So I'm going to open up the shadows. I'm going to bring down the highlights, and so it's pretty dark. But I'm going to hit the Option key or the Alt on your Windows and move the right slider all the way over until you start to see some white, and then back it off. And you can do the same thing. That creates a white point. This creates a black point. You look for something black like that. And now it's definitely underexposed. So I'm going to bring up the exposure like that. And those are your basic adjustments. So now let's go right to brushes. So this is the brush palette. This is, it's a different location than a mask palette, right? And this should look familiar to you if you've seen masks in Adobe Lightroom. So let's go right to the brush. Hit the brush. I'm going to make a brush, and I want to make the water brighter. So I'm going to do this. And I'm going to be a little sloppy about it, and I'll tell you why later. I want the white part to be whiter. So what I'm going to do, and it's what I did in my last tutorial, was I did an intersection. So I'm going to hit the three dots here, intersect with, and I'm going to go with luminance range. And what luminance range do I want? Oh, the white. So I'm going to put that eyedropper just like that, make a triangle. And the red masking is showing, what's being looked at. Now I can vary that just by take some darker areas of the photograph, go broaden it so that red should start to increase. Yeah, I don't want the rocks though. Let's do that. This is like a feathering. I can even do that. You don't want that. So I can do something like this and then feather it out this way and move it over there. And so basically the red is highlighting what would actually be changed. And from there, maybe I want to make it brighter or maybe less contrast. Or maybe, so you can see how it only affected the white part of the water and not the blue. But I could have changed that too. I can add to that mask. Let's say I want to select color range. I want some of that blue water to be affected. Now that's being affected. So if I look at the overlay, if I can find that, somewhere there's an overlay. There it is. So now the water, but it's also kind of affecting the trees. So I'm going to subtract. Do I have landscape? This is new. And it's going to figure out mountains and bridges. What I want to do is subtract the vegetation. Once it figures everything out, vegetation, because I only wanted the water to be. So I'm going to subtract the vegetation from this mask, and there. So it's only the blue of the water and the white. So now I brighten it, I darken it, brighten it, maybe cut the contrast down, maybe brighten it up. I'll, turn that overlay off. And let's make it a little blurrier. So let's try a negative dehaze. I made it too bright. Let's just cut the texture down, cut the clarity down. And there you go. And I can do any one of, I can add filter on filter. I can do all these other effects on this. And remember, this is a JPEG. So just let's get back to the basic panel. For those of you who want to know the differences between JPEG, one of the differences between JPEG and RAW is like the profile is either color or monochrome. And maybe you can browse, that's a color and monochrome. That's all you get because it's a JPEG. If you go back out of profiles, you go to lens optics, for example, it's all manual, distortion and vignette. But the point is, I was able to open up a file in Photoshop as a JPEG and then apply Adobe Camera Raw to it. So I hit OK, and there. So here, 2 layers. If I turn this new layer off, that's the original image, and that's what it would be. So that's how you handle that. So now I'm going to close this layer out. I'm not going to save it. Now what I'm going to do, if you open up, I'm going to go into Bridge. Now, Bridge is, if you don't use Bridge, I suggest this is really your. So here is Adobe Bridge, and this is basically the file system if you're not using Lightroom. And it's very good. Now, one thing, this image here is a JPEG. This one is a RAW file. So with this JPEG, one of the options I can do, if I just double clicked on it, it would probably open it up directly into Photoshop. But if you right click, you get open with. And I can say, does it have Camera Raw in here? Shop Acrobat. I don't want that. I've done this with Camera. Oh, here, open with Camera Raw. I could open it directly into Camera Raw if I wanted to. If I decide to open up this one, that's a PSD file. Do I have a RAW file in there? This is a DNG. A DNG is a type of RAW file. So if I open this one up, I'll do that if I double click. Open with Adobe Photoshop. And what you see, because it's a JPEG, because this is an actual RAW file, even though it's DNG JPEG. Oh, I don't know, it says DNG. Should be a RAW file. It opened it directly in Camera Raw. Let's cancel that. Let's go back to Bridge. And let's go to Camera Club Demos. There should be some RAWs. Here's a NEF. Okay, this is an actual RAW file right here. That says DSC NEF. DCA. And if I open it up, open with Adobe Photoshop, it should definitely, it'll bring up Camera Raw. RAW files will always open in Camera Raw. So I can so now I have more latitude. So again, the question is I could just say open from here, just open, and it'll load it into Photoshop. Even from here, because I haven't used Camera Raw, but I can still do the same thing. I can say Option J. You always want to duplicate your layers, or Control J rather. And I can say, okay, filter, Camera Raw filter. And here you are. And where's my Camera Raw filter? Why did it do that? And edit, do. It might have applied the last filter that I used. That's interesting how it did that. So I'm going to cancel out of this. Don't save. The normal way you do this is you take a filter, you open this up, and it would open up in Camera Raw. But if I double click it, it's Camera Raw. And then I can do light. So now it's a RAW file. If you've noticed on the profiles, now I have all these other options. This is new, adaptive color. If I were to go in here and say, instead of get out of profiles, and just say auto, that's auto. And that's pretty good. That's pretty much what I want. Not bad. It saves you a lot of time. it moved all the sliders accordingly. It brought up black. It opened up the yeah. It brought the highlights down and opened up the shadows, increased the white point, the black point, and it's a much better image. But I can cancel that, so I can say if I undo all that, double click these guys, and then instead of doing that, I can say adaptive color. Very different. But what adaptive color did is it made a lot of changes, but no sliders. So I have all this latitude of these sliders, but this is only available with raw files. So I can take this and maybe make it brighter. I mean, shadows are probably, maybe open the shadows, see if there's a black point I want to get on this thing. And that's pretty good. But so now I open this guy up, and there you go. So the question is, if you're not using Lightroom and you want to use brushes, your tool is Adobe Camera Raw. From a JPEG file, you can just open it in Photoshop, duplicate the layer with a Command J or Alt J on your Windows PCs, and then select and filter and Camera Raw filter. And it'll put a filter on a new layer, and you can make the same adjustments you would in Lightroom, including all the brushes, and you'd have your way. So I hope that's helpful, and hope to see you next time.